Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever part of the world you may be in, whatever time it may be in your day. This is Dr. Don with your daily LightPoint. A brand new week, brand new set of topics. This week, we want to talk about this theme around leading through, leading through crisis, leading through conflict, leading through insecurities, biases, many other topics when we talk about these circumstances that we navigate as leaders that impact us each and every day. How do we lead through it? When we talk about leading through, we're talking about a destination, a journey, an entry point and an exit point, leading through, meaning we're still required to accomplish an objective, to achieve an outcome. But we have circumstances and factors surrounding us or within us that influence how we lead through. So let's talk about it. Let's unpack that. Today, we're going to talk about leading through crisis. The reality is, in our lives, personally and professionally, we face crisis. From some frequent, for others infrequent. Regardless, we have to navigate those crises. And our obligation and commitments as a leader do not minimize in the midst of crisis. So how do I respond to the crisis at hand to the extent that I'm warranted or required, but still ensure I lead effectively, leading through crisis? What I find is really three things you want to get accomplished as you attempt to lead through crisis. One, acknowledge the crisis in front of you. Acknowledge it through the lens of reality, fact surrounding the crisis. Because sometimes in the midst of crises, our in our tendencies to want to fight or flight reveals itself. The fighter oftentimes will lean into the emotion and the experience of the crises and want to push over it, through it, around it. The fighter won't want it to have a negative impact on their ability to show up. But the challenge with the fighter in the midst of crisis is there's still this psychological impact that then manifests physiologically in our bodies, in how we speak, in how we exhibit our cues, verbally and non-verbally. So it's important, if we are one with a fight response in the midst of crisis, to acknowledge that it exists and pause and reflect on the impact that it's having on us in that moment. So it starts with us in understanding how that crisis may be impacting our experience psychologically and physiologically. We have to connect with that. Similarly, for those who may be on the other end of the spectrum and one who may want to flee from the crisis, then you're leaning on the side of avoidance or ignorance, inaction. So in both scenarios, fight or flight or in between, acknowledging that it exists, acknowledging the impact that it's having on us in the moment is the first step in leading through it. So once we've acknowledged, hey, this crisis exists, it's having this impact on me, vocalizing that impact, and then deciding, okay, how does this crisis relate to me? Is there something I can influence in or around it? And does it impact my objective that I have that's greater than the crisis? Understanding what role we play in that. It reminds me of the serenity prayer. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. So leading through crisis requires us to connect. What can I change? What can I change? What should I change? So I'm acknowledging the impact it's having. I'm acknowledging my role in it. And then take action. Now, here's the thing. Action should be related to the broader objective that you've set out to accomplish in your leadership capacity. It's not always meant to solve the crisis. Sometimes it's solely meant to acknowledge it and recognize how it's impacting the bigger objective that you may have set relative to your role in that moment or in the long term. So understanding what that is becomes essential. Just by reflecting on how it's impacting you, reflecting on your role, and then taking action accordingly is how you begin to lead through crisis. It's not by ignoring it. It's not by avoiding it. And it's not by us getting frustrated when oftentimes the crisis may not have much to do with us. It may be the people around us, the people we love or care about. Maybe it's things in our organization that we could not predict or could not have anticipated, but yet we're in it. So what do we do about it? When you think about organizations who responded to the crisis of the pandemic, all of these are really important skills and traits that we can adopt as leaders. Leading through crisis doesn't minimize our capacity and our impact, even for the things we don't feel like we can always control. Thank you for tuning in. I can't wait to continue to unpack this series about leading through. Tomorrow, we're going to talk about leading through conflict. With that being said, thanks for tuning in to our daily LightPoint. Real leaders, real talk, real time.